Hello Mark, my name is Peter and my student number is 55 and I'm the freshman. Now I'm going to read the speech Markham Nolan, How to Separate Fact and Fiction Online. I have been a journalist now since I was about 17 and it's an interesting industry to be in at the moment because as you all know, there's a huge amount of upheaval going on in media. And most of you probably know this from the business angle, which is the business model is pretty skewed. And as my grandfather would say, the profits have all been gobbled up by Google. So it's a really interesting time to be a journalist. But the upheaval that I'm interested in is not the output side. It's on the input side. It's concerned with how we get information and how we gather the news. And that's changed because we've had a huge shift in the balance of power from the news organization to the audience. And the audience for such a long time was in a position where they didn't have any way of affecting news of making any change. They couldn't really connect, and that's changed irrevocably. My first connection with the news media was in 1984. The BBC had a one-day strike. I wasn't happy. I was angry. I couldn't see my cartoons, so I wrote a letter, and it's a very effective way of ending your hate meal. Love Markham, age 4. Still work. I'm not sure if I had any impact on the one-day strike, but what I do know is that it took them 3 weeks to get back to me, and that was the wrong journey. It took that long for anyone to have any impact and get some feedback. And that's changed now because, as journalists, we interact in real time. We're not in a position where the audience is reacting to news. We're reacting to the audience, and we're actually relying on them. They are helping us finding the news. They are helping us figure out what is the best angle to take and what is the stuff that they want to hear. So it's a real-time thing. It's much quicker. It's happening on a constant basis, and the journalist is always playing catch-up. To give an example of how we rely on the audience, on the 5th of September in Costa Rica, an earthquake hit. It was a 7.6 magnitude. It was very big, and 60 seconds is the amount of time it took for it to travel 2,500 kilometers to Managua. So the ground shook in the Managua 60 seconds after it hit the epicenter. 30 seconds later, the first message went on Twitter, and this was someone saying Tumblr, which means earthquake. So 60 seconds was how long it took for the physical earthquake to travel. 30 seconds later, news of that earthquake have traveled all around the world. Instantly, everyone in the world hypothetically had a potential to know that an earthquake was happening in Managua. And that happened because this one person had a documentary instinct, which was to post a status update, which is what we all do now. So if something happens, we put our status update, or we post a photo, we post a video, and it all goes up into the cloud in a constant stream. And what that means is just constant, huge volumes of data going up. It's actually staggering. When you look at numbers, every minute there are 72 more hours of video on YouTube. So that's every second more than an hour of video gets uploaded. And in photos, Instagram, 58 photos are uploaded in Instagram a second. More than 3,500 photos go up onto Facebook. So by the time I'm finished talking here, there'll be 864 more hours of video on YouTube than there were when I started, and 2.5 million more photos on Facebook and Instagram than when we started. So it's an interesting position to be in as a journalist because we should have access to everything. Any event that happens anywhere in the world, I should be able to know about it pretty much instantaneously as it happened, for free. And that's goes for every single person in this room. The only problem is when you have much information, you have to find the good stuff. And that becomes incredibly difficult when you are dealing with those volumes. And nowhere was this brought home more than during Hurricane Sandy. So what you had in Hurricane Sandy was a superstorm, the likes of which we hadn't seen for a long time, hitting the iPhone capital of the universe, laughter, and you got the volumes of media like we had never seen before. And that means that journalists had to deal with facts, so we had to deal with old photos that were being reposted. We had to deal with the composite image that were merging photos from previous storm. We had to deal with image from films like The Day After Tomorrow, Laughter, and we had to deal with image that were so realistic it was nearly difficult to tell if they were real at all. Laughter. But joking aside, there were images like this one from Instagram which was subjected to a grilling by journalists. They weren't really sure. It was filtered in Instagram. The lighting was questioned. Everything was questioned about it, and it turned out to be true. It was from a VOC downtown Manhattan, which was flooded. And the reason that they could tell that it was real because they could get to the source. And in this case, these guys were New York food bloggers. They were well respected. They were known. So this one wasn't a debug. It was actually something that they couldn't prove. They could prove. And that was the job of the journalist. It was filtering all this stuff. And you were, instead of going and finding the information and bringing back to the reader, you were holding back the stuff that was potentially damaging. And finding the source becomes more and more important, finding a good source. And Twitter is where most journalists now go. It's like the de facto real-time newswire, if you know how to use it, because there is so much on Twitter. And a good example of how useful it can be, but also how difficult was Egyptian revolution in 2011. As a non-Arabic speaker, as someone who was looking from outside, from Dublin, Twitter lists and lists of good sources, people we could establish were credible, were really important. And how do you build a list like that from scratch? Well, it can be quite difficult, but you have to know what to look for. This visualization was done by an Italian academic. He's called Andrew Panison, and he basically took the Twitter conversation in Tahrir Square on the day that Hosni Mubarak would eventually resign. And these dots you can see are red wigs. So when someone red wigs a message, a connection is made between two dots. And the more time that message is retweeted by other people, so more you get to see this knot, this connection being made. And it's an amazing way of visualizing the conversation. But what you get is hints at whom more interesting and who is worthy investigating. And as the conversation grew and grew, it became more and more lively, and eventually you will live with this huge, big, rampant pointer of this conversation. You could find the note, though, and then you went, and you go, right, I have got to investigate these people. These are the ones that are obviously making things, so see who they are. Now, in the deluge of information, This is where the real-time web gets really interesting for the journalists like myself, because we have more tools than ever to do that kinds of investigation. And when you start digging into the sources, you can go further and further than you ever could before. Sometimes you came across a piece of content that is so compelling, you want to use it. You are dying to use it, but you are not 100% sure if you can because you don't know if the source is credible. You don't know if it is a scrap. You don't know if it is a re-upload. And you have to do that investigative work. And this video, which I'm going to let run through, was one we discovered a couple of weeks ago. Video: getting real windy in just a second. Rain and wind sounds. Explosion. Oh shit. Markham, Nolan. Okay, so now if you are a news producer, this is something you have loved to run with, because obviously this is gold. You know, this is a fantastic reaction from someone. Very genuine video that they have shot in their back garden. But how do you find if this person, if it's true, if it's fake, or if it's something that old and that's being reposted? So we set about going to work on this video, and the only thing that we had to go on was the username on the YouTube account. There was only one video post to that account, so the username was Rita Creel, and we didn't know if Rita exists or if it was a fake name. But we started looking, and we used free internet tools to do so. The first one was called Spokio, which allowed us to look for Rita Creels. So we looked all over the U.S. We found them in New York. We found them in Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Florida. So we went and we looked for a second free internet tool called Wolfram Alpha. And we checked the weather report for the day in which this video had been uploaded. And when we went through all those various cities, we found that in Florida there were thunderstorms and rain on the day. So we went to the white pages and we looked through the Rita Creels in the phone book. And we looked through the couple of different addresses. And that took us to Google Maps, where we found a house. And we found a house with a swimming pool that looked remarkably like Rita's. So we went back to the video, and we had to look for clues that we could cross-reference. So if you look in the video, there's a big umbrella. There was a white lilo in the pool. There are some unusually rounded edges in the swimming pool, and there's two trees in the background. And we went back to Google Maps, and we looked a little bit closer, and sure enough, there's a white lilo, and there are two trees. There are the umbrella. It's actually folded in this video, little bit of trickery, and there are the rounded edges on the swimming pool. So we were able to call Rita, clear the video, make sure that it had been shot, and then our clients were delighted because they were able to run it without being worried. Sometimes the search for truth, though, is a little bit less flippant, and it has much greater consequence. Syria has been really interesting for us because obviously in a lot of time you are trying to debug stuff that can be potentially war crime evidence. So this is where YouTube actually becomes the most important repository of information about what's going on in the world. So this video, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it's quite gruesome, but you will hear some of this sound. This is from Hama video, shouting, and what this video showed, when you watch the whole thing through, is bloody bodies being taken out of the pickup truck and thrown off the bridge. The allegation were that these guys were Muslim Brotherhood and they were throwing Syria army officers' bodies off the bridge. And they were cursing and using blasphemous language. And there were lots of counter claims about who they were and whether or not they were what the video said it was. So we talked to some source in Hama who we had been back and forth with on Twitter, and we explained about this. And the bridge was interesting to us because it was something we could identify. Three different sources said three different things about the bridge. They say, 1. Bridge doesn't exist. Another one said that the bridge does exist, but it's not in Hama. It's somewhere else. And the third one said, I think the bridge does exist, but the dam upstream of the bridge was closed. So the river should actually have been dry. So this doesn't make sense. So that was the only one that gave us a clue. We looked through the video for other clues. We saw the distinctive railings, which we could use. We look at the curb. The curb was throwing shadows south, so we could tell the bridge was running east-west across the river. It had black and white curb, so we look at the river itself. You could see there's a concrete stone on the west side. There's a cloud of blood. There's blood in the river, so the river is flowing south to north. That's what that tell me. And also, as you look away from the bridge, there's a divot on the left-hand side of the bank, and the river narrows. So onto Google Maps we go, and we start looking through literally every single bridge. We go to the dam that we talk about. We start just literally going through every time that road crosses the river, crossing of the bridge that don't match. We are looking for one that crosses east-west, and we get to Hama. We get all the way from the dam to Hama, and there is no bridge. So we go to a bit further. We switch to satellite view, and we find another bridge, and everything starts to line up. The bridge looks like it's crossing the river east to west, so this could be our bridge. And we zoom right in. We start to see that it's got a median, so it's a two-lane bridge, and it's got a black and white curve that we saw in the video. And as we click through it, you can see someone's uploaded photo to go with the map, which is very handy. So we click into photos, and the photos start showing us more detail that we can cross-reference with the video. The first thing that we see black and white curving, which is handy because we've seen that before. We've seen the distinctive railing that we saw the guy throwing the bodies over, and we keep going through it until we are certain that this is our bridge. So what does that tell me? I have got to go back now to my three sources and look at what they told me. The one who said that the bridge doesn't exist, the one who said that bridge wasn't in Hama, and the one guy who said, yes, the bridge does exist, but I'm not sure about water levels. Number 3 is looking like the most truthful all of the sudden. And we have been able to find out using some free internet tools sitting in a cubicle in the office in Dublin in space of 20 minutes. And that's part of joy of this. Although the web is running like a torrent, there is so much information. There is incredibly hard to sift and getting harder every day. If you use them intelligently, you can find out incredible information. Given a couple of clues, I could probably find out a lot of things about most of you in the audience that you might not like me finding out. But what it tells me is that at a time when there's a greater abundance of information than there ever has been. It's harder to filter. We have greater tools. We have free internet tools that help us to do this kind of investigation. We have algorithms that are smarter than ever before, and computers that are quicker than ever before. But here's the thing. Everything are rules. They are binary. They are yes or no's. They are black or white. Truth is never binary. Truth is the value. Truth is the emotional, is floating, and above all, it's human. No matter how quick we get with computers, no matter how much information we have, you will never be able to remove the human from the truth-seeking exercise, because in the end, it is a uniquely human trait. Thank you very much. Applause.